Yo, guys, I hope you're well. So, guys, I don't normally use any kind of script, any kind of auto cue, or any kind of prompt. But today I've written a few notes down here on my PC because I've been so angry in the last few days and I really want to make a point. So I apologize in advance for doing this. I normally go off the top of the dome. I normally speak from my mind, but I've had to make a few points. And this is the point about why Donald Trump should sue the BBC. So, guys, I've said why Donald Trump should sue the BBC. And the first point I laid down is that the BBC has lied to the British public with their cut and paste broadcast on Donald Trump on the 2020 US presidential election. So to some people, it may seem to be a minor issue, but in my eyes, a lie is a lie is a lie is a lie. And if you have been found out to have had one lie, how many other lies do we not know about? So this is one point I'm hoping that if Donald Trump is able to drag the BBC before the courts, it is going to expose all sorts of information and all sorts of, you've heard talk, some people call it tittle tattle from behind the scenes that's been going on. It will have to come out in the wash. That is what I'm hoping. So hopefully Donald Trump will be able to sue the BBC, and hopefully, yeah, we're going to find out exactly what the BBC has been doing with taxpayer money. So guys, that's the one point. The second point is the BBC is as woke can be. They've been able to have their narrative thrust down our throats for the last X amount of years without anyone being able to challenge them. It's got to stop. We're not happy. It's got to stop. And then the third point I've been thinking about is the BBC is most definitely a biased organization. They do not report the news from a balanced standpoint. They don't. They really don't. And I can give you an example. So do you remember only a few weeks back, I've got 2 points about this. So the first thing I'm going to say, let me rewind, is about Tommy Robinson. Okay? We all know that Tommy Robinson isn't Tommy Robinson's name. The reason why he calls himself Tommy Robinson, I've been told, is that it is the name for any British soldier. So First World War, Second World War, whatever. It's just the name of Tommy. But the BBC and the rest of the mainstream media can't have one without the other. Every single time they have a report on Tommy Robinson, they have to say Tommy Robinson, real name, but they give the government name. Why do they do that just to Tommy Robinson and to no one else? Boris Johnson, Boris isn't his first name. If you have to say someone like Elton John isn't his real name, it's Reg Dwight. They don't say Elton John, real name Reg Dwight or whatever. They don't say Boris Johnson, real name, I can't remember what his real name is, etc., etc. But by saying that, they're beginning to control the narrative. And that's why it is biased, absolutely biased, what the BBC and the rest of the mainstream media does. Just say Tommy Robinson and then report on what you're going to say about Tommy Robinson. Don't say Tommy Robinson, real name. Really? Don't say it. And the second thing about Tommy Robinson is his Unite the Kingdom march. All of the mainstream media, the BBC, everyone was saying, oh, only 150,000 people attended the march. We've seen the footage online. We've seen it. I have been absolutely gobsmacked. It was millions and millions of people who attended that march. Millions. And so that is another way they are massaging the narrative, controlling the narrative, and stopping people from seeing the truth. The BBC, if it is an unbiased broadcaster, it should present the truth. If the truth hurts, the truth hurts. That's what the truth is meant to do. The truth will be the truth, nothing but the truth. So if 1 million people, 2 million, 3 million people came out to unite the kingdom, report 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. Do not lie to the British public. Not having it. 150,000. You must be joking. So those are some points I'm thinking about the BBC, but let me get to my notes now. So I've written here, if Trump sues the BBC, it will expose just how many other cases and times the BBC has openly deceived the British public with deceptive making of films and broadcasts. So I've talked to you about the Tommy Robinson case. The second part was I said the BBC is as woke can be. So there is already a lot of anger on how the BBC misled the British public over Gaza. Some reports on Gaza, some news, some film footage, interviews, blah, blah, blah. But I'm hearing, and this isn't really out there in the open, but I'm hearing that how the BBC has handled the trans issue has been even worse. So how it's handled its own staff, how it's handled the narrative within its own corridors, within its own staff, how people haven't been able to speak their piece has been absolutely disgusting. So we're not just talking about Donald Trump. We're not just talking about Gaza. We're talking about other areas like the trans issue. So, for instance, their broadcasters, their newscasters have been told what to say. And if they've swayed or veered away from the script, punishments. So that is another thing that needs to be looked at. How they try and control the narrative. If they are as balanced as they say they're meant to be, then there should be no narrative. There should be nothing that needs to be controlled. So again, Donald Trump, I really do hope he sues the BBC, because some of these things will come out into the public light. They're going to come out and we're going to find out what's going on with the BBC. Remember, we are taxpayers. We pay for the BBC. So we should absolutely know what's going on at the BBC. And then the last thing I was going to say here, guys, was that I was shocked to the core, because not just the BBC, but the other outlets like Sky, Channel 4, and all the rest of them, they all think that it is okay for one of them to cut and paste news, broadcasts, interviews, and then to shunt them together and to present something else. So what they've done is they've cut and they've spliced separate interviews together to create a totally different and a very deceptive impression from what was actually the truth. To me, that is absolutely disgusting. But to all these other places, they're like, oh, no, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter. It matters a lot, because that is deception. Deception. And the British public, we're not having it. And in my eyes and in many other people's eyes, that is exactly what fake news is. And none of these cretins seem to realize or recognize this. Or is it the fact that they're trying to brainwash us into thinking it is acceptable for a broadcaster to do this? But when the shoe's on the other foot, they'll go into a hissy fit and get their panties in a bunch. Really? Don't they? Yes, they do. So, yeah, not happy about this. And if the BBC is allowed to have carte blanche to doctor footage and reports to sell their own narratives, then why did so many people get arrested and sent to prison during Southport, the riots, for allegedly posting misleading comments online that were said to be far right and racist? When they tried to identify the suspect, we all know who the suspect is, and the suspect was, of such horrific crimes, and we tried to identify him as a terrorist, which was later proven. So guys, it seems that there's one rule for one hand and another rule for another. Two-tier at its finest once again. So guys, that is two-tier broadcasting. BBC insisting that it has the right to lie to the British public with impunity. So guys, I'm going to leave it there. But in my opinion, Donald Trump should sue the BBC, because it's going to expose how many other times they've lied to us. Hopefully it will bring out how woke the BBC is, and it'll also bring out how biased I don't want to say the C word as well, but how biased the BBC is as well. So guys, let me know down here in the comment section. Have you got any other examples that you can give us about the BBC and the other MSM outlets? And how do you feel about the BBC and other outlets lying to us by piecing footage together to create a different impression of what really happened? Are you happy with that? Or do you think these people should be held to account? So guys, the ball's in your court, but I am absolutely disgusted, and I'm disgusted with all the other talking heads that have come up on the news over the last few days thinking, oh, Donald Trump, oh, he's got no right to. But if you misrepresent someone in any way, that person should have the right to drag you in front of the court and to make sure that the truth will out. Guys, make sure you look after yourselves, you look after each other, and I will see you at the next one.